Welcome to the Monsters, Myths, and Mayhem podcast. Today's episode, by fan vote, is going to be the Wendigo. I'm Silver.
I'm chaotic.
Guess we'll get the show on the road for you. What do you know about the Wendigo?
As per usual, it's mostly pop culture reference knowledge.
Which is what a lot of people know about it. What do you think a Wendigo looks like? Without looking it up, just off the top of your head.
Like a really tall, frail, almost translucent skinned, creepy crawler humanoid thing.
That's actually closer than what I thought you were going to, because a lot of people see it as the taller creature with the skull, like the deer skull with the teeth and the antlers.
Yeah.
That version is actually more of a more common way to see the Wendigo, as that one was mainly kind of brought up via a old TV show or movie made by non-natives. How you kind of described it was the native version. The Wendigo is gaunt to the point of emaciation. It is desiccated skin pulled taut over its bones, with its bones pushing out against its skin. Its complexion the ash gray of death. Its eyes push deep back into its sockets, and lips that are pretty much gone, like it's eating its own lips off. But it primarily looks kind of humanoid, but it just gets taller, really tall and large, but also skinny, which makes it look small and large at the same time. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, like frail and big, like frail and tall, like huge.
Yeah, kind of like if people were mixed with giraffes.
Oh.
That type of big, long, lanky. They give off a eerie odor of decay and decomposition, the smell of death and corruption.
We love that. The stench of death.
Usually they're above 10 feet tall, but kind of rewind a bit. Go back a little bit about the culture of the Wendigo. What area do you think the Wendigo myth was most pronounced around? It's kind of...
Area, Canada.
You are partially correct. It follows the people of the Algonquian speaking and culture, and also some of the Ojibwe, Eastern Cree, Salty Ox, West Main Swampy Cree, Nasakapi, and the Innu people, which they're all kind of based around the East Coast forest of Canada, the Great Plain regions of the United States, and the Great Lakes region of the United States, like where we are.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that we're in Wendigo territory. Like from here and then upwards towards Canada, I know like Wendigos and the word you're not supposed to say are also all around everywhere.
Word we're not supposed to say.
The skin crawlies. I'm not going to say their full name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, between those and Wendigos are very fluctuous in between here and Canada.
Yeah. I believe those ones and the Wendigos, a lot of people get mixed up as well.
Yeah, often.
Which I didn't look too much into them, so I can't really comment on those guys. But as normal, the Wendigos are mainly seen during the winter, when food is low and storms are usually strongest, because The wendigo. How am I going to word this to translate it right? What a wendigo pretty much is a spirit that is said to possess people when they eat human meat, which then slowly transforms and turns them into wendigos. Even if you accidentally consume human meat by accident, they can still come and possess you. They are malevolent spirits. Their appearance does vary depending on the tribe, but it's mostly the same. Some had its fur, got the color of white, usually blood-stained. But they also have hearts made completely of ice. Is one of their big characteristics I've seen that goes in between all of them. When a wendigo transforms, a person transforms into a wendigo. They gain an insatiable hunger. Every time they eat, they grow in size. So they just keep on growing the more they eat. And the more they grow, the more hungry they get. They do not lose their human intelligence, nor their ability to use tools. There has been cases such as one I've seen was there's this story of a wendigo that captured a small native boy. He used this boy to go into villages. The boy got food for himself and ate. When the boy was there, he warned the chiefs and everything about the wendigo being out in the field. And so they all went out there to hurt the wendigo, and they ended up cutting the wendigo's legs off. And the wendigo started eating his own legs.
Did you just say their own legs?
Yes, their own legs after the natives cut his legs off.
Oh.
Then the chiefs asked the wendigo, "Are your legs any good?" And as the wendigo replied, "Yes, they are full of marrow, as I have been eating lots of natives."
Imagine the tea.
Did you know there is actually a medical term related to wendigos?
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like how most myths and stuff get their own medical term per their own, like lycanthropy is werewolves, and lunacy is like from the goddess Selene in the moon.
Yeah. Yeah.
The wendigos is called wendigo psychosis. It's kind of a disputed modern medical term, but wendigo psychosis, some psychiatrists consider it a syndrome that creates an intense craving for human flesh and a fear of becoming a cannibal. Ironically, this psychosis occurs within people living around the Great Lakes of Canada and the United States. Wendigo psychosis usually develops in the winter in individuals who are isolated by heavy snow for long periods of time. The initial symptoms are poor appetite, nausea, and vomiting. Subsequently, the individual develops a delusion of being transformed into a wendigo monster. People who have wendigo psychosis increasingly see others around them as being edible. At the same time, they have an exaggerated fear of becoming cannibals. The most common response when a person shows signs of wendigo psychosis was a curing attempt by traditional native healers. In past cases, if the attempts failed and the possessed person began to threaten those around them or to act violently or antisocially, they were executed. There have been reports regarding
Oh,
this.
hang on. Imagine having anxiety and just not wanting to come out and them being like, wendigo. I would not have survived. I 110% would have just been like, I just don't feel like being around people. And they'd have been like, that's a no-go.
If you haven't hurt no one, I'm pretty sure you'd be okay.
I they get questionable. They get questionable. You get too internally too hoardy to yourself. They're like,
Well, that's kind of funny because I was also reading because I got into like this rabbit hole of culture bound syndromes, which is what wendigo psychosis is because it's only bound to the Algonquian people.
right.
And there's another one that's bound to another group of natives in America where it's like being sad, not eating. If you're being sad, not eating, feel like you can't breathe sometimes.
I literally can't breathe right now. What is this? Why are you listing off my symptoms, homie?
They call it a ghost sickness in the tribes. And in order to cure it, they don't kill you. They hold ceremony. They hold a giant ceremony where everybody gets together, and it's said to kind of cure it for a bit or hold it off. Which,
It
like
was
you
called
said,
anxiety. That was depression and anxiety. They were like, "Oh, are you feeling a little depresso espresso? Come out and playing out with everybody else."
yeah, so you can kind of see that kind of the newer medical terms mixing with the old ones because they had that kind of idea that something was going on. I didn't get too far into ghost sickness, so I can't really speak too much on that. And then there was another one where I think it was like Cura, where people ate they supposedly demon brains, and they just kept getting more and more crazy, seeing more different things. Could be an effect of eating so much human flesh or human brains that they thought were demon brains that caused it. But there's a whole list of kind of crazy culture bound stuff. Psychology is kind of debated still, but there have been actual reported cases and deaths and trials for wendigo psychosis. The most famous one is the case of a trapper or Plains Cree trapper from Alberta called Swift Runner. Have you heard of that one?
I have not.
So this was documented back in 1878. The trapper called Swift Runner. He suffered one of the worst cases known. He was a trader he was a trader with the Hudson Bay Company. He was married and he was also a father of 6 children. He used to also serve as a guide for the Northwest Mounted Police.
Okay.
In the winter of 1878 to 1879, Swift Runner and his family were starving along with numerous other families. His eldest son was the first to die of starvation. And at some point, Swift Runner succumbed to wendigo psychosis. Though emergency food supplies were available at Hudson Bay Company Post, which was about 25 miles away, he did not attempt to travel there. Instead, he killed the remaining family members he had, and he consumed them. He acted like nothing happened. After the winter passed, he went back to out and everything, and his people were kind of wondering where his family was. And eventually, they got him to lead them back to his campsite for the winter, where they found human remains, gnawed on bones, broken bones for the marrow. Where then Swift Runner finally confessed that he killed and ate them all.
Oh. Oh.
Mhm. And he blamed it on wendigo psychosis that he turned into a wendigo.
Right.
He was also then executed by the authorities at Fort Saskatchewan,
Beautiful.
which was, I believe, also the first time Canada had a So I believe it was the first time Canada also had their first execution on record. If I remember right. The first actually reported case of Wendigo psychosis, or the mentioning kinda of these creatures, was in a 1661 Jesuit relations document. The document stated, "What caused us greater concern was the intelligence that met us upon entering the lake, namely, that the men deputed by our conductor to summon the nations to the North Sea and assigning them a rendezvous where they were to await our coming had met their deaths the previous winter in a very strange manner. Those poor men, according to the report given, were seized with an ailment unknown to us but not very unusual among the people we were seeking. They were afflicted with neither lunacy, hypochondria, nor frenzy, but have a combination of all these species of diseases, which affect their imaginations and cause them a more than canine hunger. This makes them so ravenous for human flesh that they pounce upon women, children, and even upon men, like veritable werewolves, and devour them voraciously without being able to appease or glut their appetite. Ever seeking fresh prey, and more greedily the more they eat. This ailment attacked our deputies, and as death is the sole remedy among those simple people for checking such acts of murder, they were slain in order to stay the course of their madness." So this document is kind of giving you the more kind of the ailments symptoms as they were craving human flesh and everything. I found it interesting that these people back in 1661 knew of werewolves and knew enough that they compared them to werewolves. And the last little story I got that kind of involves Wendigo was about Wendigo, so-called Wendigo curers or slayers, which was also another court case up in Canada that involved Wendigo psychosis. So this story involves Jack and Joseph Fiddler. Jack was an OG Cree chief, a medicine man known for his powers at defeating Wendigos. Fiddler claimed to have defeated 14 Wendigos during his lifetime. Some of these creatures were said to have been sent by enemy shamans, and others were members of his band who had been taken with the insatiable, incurable desire to eat human flesh. In the latter cases, family members usually asked Fiddler to kill a very sick loved one before they turned Wendigo. Fiddler's brother, Peter Flett, was killed after turning Wendigo when the food ran out on a trading expedition. Hudson Bay Company traders at the Cree and missionaries knew the Wendigo legend, though they often explained it as mental illness or superstition. Regardless, several incidents of people turning Wendigo and eating human flesh are documented in the company's records. In 1907, Fiddler and his brother Joseph were arrested by the Canadian authorities for murder. Jack committed suicide, but Joseph was tried and sentenced to life in prison. He ultimately granted a pardon, but before he got his pardon, 3 days later he died in jail before receiving his news that he was pardoned.
Sketchy.
So I believe this was kind of because back in the time, from what I understand, there was tribal law, and then there was the Canadian law, and they weren't exactly on even footing with certain things. So in tribal law, what they were doing was correct, but with the Canadian authority, it was not, which is why I believe he got his pardon. I'm not exactly sure if his death was sketchy from other prisoners or guards. That kind of, it doesn't really say, but it does seem sketchy. He died 3 days after receiving his pardon, but before he got his news. But that was kind of
The sketchy story
yeah.
for the episode.
Those were the stories of actual Wendigo psychosis, which we'll go kind of back to the actual monster itself instead of it being the Wendigo psychosis. With a Wendigo being more supernatural and such, I know they are said to have had the ability to control the weather in a localized area. So, like, they see you out roaming around and a sudden snowstorm kicks up. They said a wendigo might be near. He's trying to hide in the snow to stalk you. They have enhanced senses as well as the ability to hunt in complete darkness. They are immortal with continued consumption of human flesh and their ability to hibernate. A wendigo can theoretically live forever. They got superhuman strength and speed. Voice mimicry. They can imitate human voice in the sounds of other things in order to try and lure you out. Super regeneration, where when they get injured, they can regenerate really quickly. And then this possession from when they're in their spirit form. Some media and stuff also say, which I believe is more newer stuff kicked up about, that if you get scratched sometimes or bitten by them, you transform into one. But I haven't really seen a lot of that back in the actual notes. That was just mostly in the newer media and video games portray him like that. Even with its super regeneration and its immortality, it does have ways to be killed.
Okay.
Just like werewolves. Silver can harm it.
Okay, so we all kidnap you when they come, right? Okay. Haha, but
And it also seems to be weak to fire. Or capture you, use you as your fire.
Let's go. This girl is on fire.
I think that's more than a medical condition.
Oh.
That might be homicide.
No.
But so you need a silvered or silvered weapon in order to harm them. To kill Wendigo, you need to cut it apart, cut out its icy heart from its body, burn the body till there's nothing left, then throw the icy heart in a separate fire, and then you burn that until it all melts away.
Very detailed.
Yes. So one account I seen where it was kind of a cure for Wendigo, or to kill them nicely, was there's this girl and her mother who lived on the edge of the forest because her father was the trapper, and her father never returned. So she was the main trapper. So the girl went out and started trapping and getting all this stuff while her mother did all the cooking and such. Well, she was out wandering in the woods, checking all her traps even more because there is less and less food available. So she was checking the traps more and more. When she walked out further than she normally had, she spotted a wendigo roaming the snows, and it stared directly at her. So she started slowly backing away, and the wendigo started slowly coming after her, just kind of mimicking her speed till it got beside her, just through a couple of trees. And the faster she walked, the faster it walked. She eventually made it back to her house and where she took off at a mad dash, and it did as well, but she made it into her house and closed the door. Where then there was a gently soft knocking at the door. She told her mom not to open the door, it was a wendigo. Her mother opened the door, and standing there, above the door, bigger than the door frame, was the wendigo. Her mother invites it in for food, because they had caught a rabbit. So they were going to have rabbit stew. The girl and the wendigo both sat down at the table as the mother prepared the soup. And as the mother gave the girl her first bowl, and the wendigo started sculping down the food as fast as it could. As the girl was eating, then the wendigo put it down like she wanted more. So the mother gave the wendigo more.
I don't have good vibes. This isn't a good story.
The wendigo wanted more. So the wendigo got more. Got the mother's share. The girl had finished her food by then. So the wendigo finished that one and wanted more. So the mother gave Wendigo all the broth. Wendigo wanted more. And insatiable hunger. So the mother, scooping still out of the pot, it seemed like, but was instead scooping ashes out of the fire and gave the Wendigo the coals from the fire
Oh,
in his soup. So that when the Wendigo sculpted it down, it burned his insides and melted his icy heart.
oh, so mom was like, "I gave you all my soup, and you're still not appreciative. Take this death instead."
Yes. I can't really remember the end of the story since I only heard it once, but it either killed the Wendigo by melting his heart or changed the Wendigo back in from the Wendigo into the girl's grandfather.
Oh, spicy. The only stories I know again are like pop culture is, like basic stories. The stories you've been telling are really close to one of my favorite depictions of the Wendigo, which would be Until Dawn, the game. Their depiction of Wendigos is pretty close to what you've been talking about. The only difference is that they talk about they lean a little bit more towards the Wendigo spirit, like the actual possession of the Wendigo spirit, without even trying the human blood thing or the human skin.
It does a real good at bringing about the story of the Wendigo.
Yeah, that one, and then I like Teen Wolf. Songbird and I watched Teen Wolf together, and they had a Wendigo that was in that. That was really cool. That one was a little different because it was like a shifter Wendigo, so they never like shifted into like the full-fledged, tall, gangly, creepy guys. They just like got super sharp teeth and like their jaws disconnected a bit to open their mouth, and they were kind of like glowy eyes, but that was about it.
Supernatural also has Wendigos. Actually, the second episode, season 1.
Oh, well, you know what? That's the only season I've watched, and I couldn't tell you that from the back of my head. So
I just knew because I looked it up. But it also kind of looks like the more human-faced Wendigo. In unsuspecting place, you'd find Wendigos. My Little Pony. My Little Pony has here Wendigos. Oh, yeah.
What in the sorcery?
Yeah. I believe that's more of the skull-faced Wendigo.
Right.
Just like in Ancient Magus Bride, which is a really good anime. One of the main characters, his backstory, Elias Ainsworth. His backstory kind of leads to him being a Wendigo into it, but it never actually comes out and says it. But he has the skull face with the antlers, and then it pops up in a bunch of other movies and TV shows as well. You just search Wendigos and TV shows, Wendigos and movies, they'll just pop it up. Time for the mayhem.
Woohoo!
So as for mayhem with the Wendigo, I think it'd be pretty high if it has the ability to possess you without actually eating human flesh. Because eating human flesh seems to be a pretty specific condition in order to become possessed.
Yeah, the percentage would be higher.
I feel like if its range was more than just the Algonquian people, that it would also increase the range a bit. Pretty much anywhere that's cold. It seems like a more cold weather dwelling spirit.
Yeah, it doesn't really need the heat or the cold, so it's not gonna like there's It's not gonna go where like there's scorching heat because obviously it's got like next to no skin to protect it.
It's still pretty much terrorized. It get a bunch of missing people. Since it keeps its human intelligence, I think it'll still be enough to terrorize all the locals without getting caught. Humans aren't really that smart. Humans aren't really smart to begin with, so.
Our next discussion on humans and their possible, intelligence on the mayhem scale.
Humans are dumb. I do not claim to be one.
Okay, but to be fair, like sometimes it seems like the dumber they are, the more scary they are on our scale. If that makes sense. Because they don't have
That's true.
morals. They're just like going ham.
Yeah. Like the Tarrasque.
Mm-hmm. It's just there to eat and kill. It's not there for anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, like if it was the spirit Wendigo, I feel like we'd have a lot more to worry about. I feel like it'd be a bigger mass. We'd have to worry about like Alaska, Canada, some of the northern countries, you would just have to really worry about more fluctuation, I feel like. I don't know. I think that if it was the cannibalism thing, obviously, it's been proven that there are cannibals amongst us, but I don't feel like it would be as often, for sure.
Yeah. Plus, they always seem to be solo hunters, so it's not like you got to worry about a pack of them coming around.
Yeah, the one in Until Dawn. Spoiler alert for anybody who's not played. Go away. Kills the other one. Like they don't care. They don't get in their way. Period. They're just predatory animals or beasts.
They're said to be the ultimate hunters. So yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess to an extent, yeah, but like for the most part, don't they rely on like sound and movement?
Not from what I've read. Well, from what I read, they got actually excellent eyesight and hearing with their
Oh,
super senses, where they'll stalk you, and if they see you, they'll stalk you around. They'll cause a snowstorm in order to blend in, so that you can't see them coming, or they'll hide in a snowbank or in trees and call out like if you hear a crying baby in the middle of the woods, maybe.
oh, so they lure you with some shit.
Yeah, because they can mimic things excellently, where you
Mm,
can't tell the difference.
that is also a trait of a crawly boy. The skinny boys never answer a whistle in the woods.
Shout outs to Mondi, Thor, yes, Ruby Hummingbird as well.
Had to think about that one.
Yes. They're all tier 2 patrons, so they get their names shouted out on the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you and good night.
Roll the outro.
Join us again next Monday on Monsters, Myths, and Mayhem, found on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Anchor.fm. Silver and Chaotic talk about how monsters and myths came to be and how they would be received in modern-day society. Follow, like, and subscribe to support. Also find the podcast on Twitter and Discord with the links below to keep up to date with the newest merch and activity. Besides, who knows what mayhem we will get into next.